we're going to learn how to make a thermofax screen for screen printing. So you have to have a thermofax machine, which we have in the studio. So any of you seeing this elsewhere and want to have a thermofax screen made for you, you can send me the image. I'll have the link at the end of the video, and I can make the screen for you. However, if you're close enough, where I think most of you are watching these videos are my local customers, this is how we make the thermofax machine. Now, thermofax works on a toner or carbon-based print, and so normally I would say that you want to make your screen with an image that is printed out of a laser printer or a photocopy machine. However, today what I'm going to show you is using a carbon pencil. And this is a Lyra Rembrandt carbon pencil. It looks like a charcoal pencil, but it's actually carbon. And so for this, what you can do is basically take any design and just draw directly on paper with this carbon pencil. And this is going to turn into a screen. So everywhere that I've got the carbon or the pencil, this pencil, there are going to be holes in the screen, so I'm going to be able to pull paint through those holes. Now, what if I can't draw, you say? Well, that's easy. All you have to do, you can trace something with the carbon pencil, or in this instance I thought, you know what, I love this stencil, but I really want to have more of an outline effect rather than having to use the stencil to color in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a screen that just has these outlines so that when I'm actually screening or printing onto my paper are just the outlines of these areas to fill in with my colors. This is primary, secondary, tertiary colors. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to trace all the way around it. So I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me do all of that. I've already done one. So here's my image, or by tracing, that I used a stencil with the carbon pencil. And then what I want to do is I want to take my screen. This comes on a roll. It's quite pricey. We charge $1 an inch. It's 8.5 inches wide. We charge $1 a linear inch. And so I've already got one cut here. There's two sides to this. One side is kind of scritchy and the other side is slick. I want the slick side down over top of my image. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich it inside of, this is just a carrier sheet. This is a sheet protector cut so that it just carries my paper so that everything stays down flat. And so I've got smooth side down, I've got it inside my carrier sheet, and now I'm going to take you over here and let you see the actual machine. Let's see, here we go. You're just seeing the edge of it right here. But I have this dial right here set. There's a green button up at the top, a green indicator, and that's where I want my line to be lined up. And I'm actually going to feed it between, there's two arrows here. I don't know if you can see them or not. There's two arrows here, and I'm going to feed my paper through the machine. And as soon as I activate it by pushing the paper in, it feeds it through and spits it out the bottom. That's it. And then what I have is, can you see that? What it's done is everywhere that carbon pencil was on my paper, I now have holes in my screen. So what do you do with that, you say? Well, let me show you what you do with that. Back over here. How's that? Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to take this screen and I want to stabilize it. There's special frames that you can buy. I'm not going to worry so much about that. I'm going to actually cut this out. And normally I would be kind of conservative with how much of the screen that I cut off the roll in the first place. But I can always use these scraps for smaller screens. Sometimes I do just little words or things like that. So these scraps, I don't throw any of this away. So we take that. So now I've got my screen cut out kind of to size. I've got some border around the outside. That's great. Then what I'm going to take is Gaffer's tape. This is a fabric tape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape around the edges. You can tell I was playing with paint earlier today because the paint is transferring to the tape. And I don't need that full thickness, so I'm just tearing it down the center. And make sure this is in view for you. I'm going to place my screen on that tape, and then I'm going to fold the tape over. There's the top. Here's the bottom. And I need to give credit for this stencil, is absolutely fabulous. This is a Pam Carriker design, and I purchased the stencil through Stencil Girl and stencilgirl.com if you want that original stencil, or we have it here in the studio. Mary Beth Shaw is an amazing artist and proprietress of Stencil Girl Design, and they make really great all American made stencils, laser cut stencils. So there's a fabulous selection there. All right, here I am doing my one other side. And finally the last side of this stencil. I want to make sure that I'm not covering up any of my design. Otherwise my paint won't be able to go through it. It'll be masked. Okay, so there we have, it's all stabilized now. Now when I lay it down, theoretically, now when I lay it down on my paper, it'll stay flat, which will be nice. So, and then now how do I get this onto paper? That's the next question. Well, that's easy too. So let's take just an art journal page here. And actually, let's just start with some scratch paper. So here, this is fun foam. You could take a stack of newsprint or maybe a phone book. You just want a little bit of pushing back behind the paper. You're going to take your stencil, and then you want to apply some paint on here. Now, what kind of paint? You can use acrylic paint. You want it to be kind of thick. I actually have from class this morning a whole bunch of paint left on this paper plate. And so, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Phone was going to ring. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some paint, and I'm actually going to scrape it across. And I'm trying not to go over it too many times because that's when you get it kind of smudgy and seeping under the edges. So I'm just scraping it across one time, and there's my design screened onto a piece of paper. So now I can actually paint in to those little spots, but I want to do that on an art journal page here too, if it fits. Looks like it does. So one thing to keep in mind is to not let the paint dry on here, otherwise it fills in those holes and you can't pull. And see, I'm breaking my own rules, and you'll see why in just a second, why I don't like to scrape over it a lot of times. I can see that it kind of oozed out underneath. But back to not letting the paint dry on here. If I let the paint dry on here, then it's going to block those holes and I'm not going to be able to screen print through it anymore. So I'm going to take that back and I'm going to wash it as soon as I turn this camera off. And so anyway, there is my screen onto just an art journal page. And imagine, you can screen onto anything. Clothing, tote bags, canvas, paper, whatever you want. You can pull these screens. You can pull prints through the screen with acrylic paint. So hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and come in and make a screen. They're a lot of fun.